forward it. Mr. Speaker, I support the passage of this bill.
Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. I recognise the honourable member, Dr. Paul Hutchison.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a pleasure to take a call on this Geneva Convention's Third Protocol Red Crystal Emblem Amendment Bill. And, Mr. Speaker, I'm sure that all members of this House would agree that the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies should be regarded with the highest respect of just about any humanitarian organisations. They do from time to time demonstrate selfless contribution and extraordinary sacrifice, with their operatives from, on many occasions, putting themselves into extraordinary danger for the sake of others. Mr. Speaker, the main aim of this bill is to amend the Geneva Conventions Act 1958 and the Flags, Emblems and Name Protection Act 81 in order to implement New Zealand's obligations under the Genevan Conventions of the 12th of August 1949, which New Zealand signed on the 19th of June 2006 with regarding to the adoption of this additional distinctive emblem. And, Mr. Speaker, amending this bill enables an additional protective emblem with equal status to the Red Cross and Red Crescent to be used in situations where neither of the existing emblems had the respect of both sides in an armed conflict. And I note in Schedule 7 of the bill the distinctive emblems here from Article 2, as you may see, Mr. Speaker, and Article 3 indicate clearly the characteristics of this emblem. I think, as Mr. Goff described, most would recognise this as a diamond. It was actually described also as a lozenge. However, the major point is that the red crystal emblem is intended to be free from any national, religious, cultural or political connotations. And that's obvious from the history of the genesis of this symbol coming into being. Mr. Speaker, this bill reaffirms New Zealand's long-standing position as a supporter of international humanitarian law and the role of the International Red Cross and Red Crescent movement. It is worthwhile just reiterating the background. The Third Protocol, of course, emanated from the original Geneva Conventions in 1949, and the adoption of this distinctive emblem was adopted by the states at the Geneva Conventions in 2005, and New Zealand signed the protocol in 2006. And one does again wonder why the Minister of Foreign Affairs at the time, the Honourable Phil Goff, didn't expedite this into legislation during the course of the last Labour government. One wonders, was he a lazy minister? Was he a lazy minister? And I leave the House to question this. Yes, I do indeed feel somewhat cynical at the moralising that he's exhibited during the course of this morning. But, Mr. Speaker, it is good that this is now before the House as we see it, and I think it's important to remember that the Geneva Conventions of 1949 and additional protocols 1 and 2 of 77 are a primary source of international humanitarian law and the law of armed conflict. Mr. Speaker, the Red Cross and Crescent emblems are now used in over 190 countries to protect authorised medical personnel, buildings and equipment, and chaplains during times of armed conflict. Mr. Speaker, however, some countries, and I think again Mr. Goff identified Israel and Eritrea as being two, find it difficult to use these symbols because of the religious connotations. Israel itself was keen to use, through its Magen David Adom NGO, to use the red shield of David. Clearly this was unacceptable to others, and consequently the red crystal emblem was settled through the conventions. This was not entirely easy. There were difficulties in getting it through, and certainly the Arab League countries did not agree. However, the overall feeling was it was important. I think it is relevant to say that the additional emblem is needed for two main reasons, and one can think of the conflict in Libya and again in Syria right now, where it is used for military medical personnel and authorised humanitarian workers during those sorts of conflicts that are going on as we speak. It's also used to enable national societies which are unable to adopt either of the emblems currently in use. And as I said, Mr. Speaker, there's no doubt that it wasn't entirely easy getting this passed through. It would have been great to have it unanimously passed, but that wasn't the case. The Arab League states wanted to see some of the issues regarding the Golan Heights and the Palestine territories settled before they would agree to it, and one must hope that with time this will happen. And I must say I do agree with Mr. Goff when I hear of the settlements occurring in East Jerusalem, which seem to me to be particularly provocative under the circumstances. Mr. Speaker, the red crystal emblem and its introduction into this convention is a very positive move, and I support it into the House.
Speaker.
I call the Honourable Mary Ann